Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WOWBIZ Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Welcome to WOWBIZ. Welcome to WOWBIZ Nebraska. This is a new show. It's an unusual show, but it's an overdue show as a result of so much that's going on inside the state of Nebraska. So many interesting things happening in the business community. We are the voice of Nebraska's business community. There are many people that I'll be bringing in front of you every single week right here on this station, on the web as well, by the way, and we're going to extract their wisdom. We're going to showcase it for you. You'll be able to learn when you're watching this show, and I guarantee you'll always be entertained. But I want to talk to you for just a second about the sponsor of this show. This is a special show. We need a special sponsor. Now, you see the logo, you see the action behind me right here, this backdrop. What do you think about this action back here? Huh? Beautiful work. Beautiful work brought to you by Curzon Promotional Graphics here in the Omaha, Nebraska area. Now, Curzon's a special operation. They've been around a long time. They understand design. They work in every single visual milieu, okay? Whether it's signage on the edge of the building, it's a trade show, this kind of a situation. They're all over the place if it's graphical. And this is what I want to say. Please hear me on this. Our world is becoming more visual. It really is. We don't have time to read, right? And so graphics are becoming increasingly important, whether we like that or not. That is how it is. These people have been at the cutting edge for many, many years, I think over 20 years. They've got a family operation over there. They do a great job. And if you want to go with the flow, if you really want to kind of fit into what is happening in this crazy, fast-paced world, you've got to have incredible graphics. That's the bottom line. You've got to art direct your life. So go to Curzon Promotional Graphics here in the Omaha area. They're reliable, they're steady, they have wonderful manufacturers that work with them to satisfy your needs and do it just the way you want it done. I'm so thrilled to have promotional graphics from Curzon right here on the set of WOWBIZ Nebraska. So thank you so much to them. Now, that brings us to a special guy. All right, and something that he does uniquely well. Everybody that's in the business community knows you've got to network and get out there and meet people and chat and so on. This person seems to have an innate or an intuitive sense of what that really means. It's not everybody that knows how to do it correctly. So let's learn from the man, Mr. Simon Lovell. Come on, join us out here, Simon. That was good.
Right, man.
Good to see you, man. Now, Simon, everybody knows you have that distinctive, is it English or Australian accent?
Oh, my Lord, it's English.
It's English, okay.
Yes.
Don't be offended, I didn't know.
No,
But anyway, so you've got that going for you, and so when you walk into a room and you say hello and so on and so forth, somebody immediately gravitates to that. Do you like that, or do you kind of acknowledge it and move on and try to get to other substantive discussion points?
Well, after just 25 years of living here, I've only had that happen, once,
10
twice,
billion
maybe.
times, yes.
So it does become, I think in a way I like to look for those people that can question that in an interesting way. Because isn't that what we're trying to do, is somewhat separate ourselves, not because we want to be different, but because we are different. So I think I'm more drawn to those people that can ask the question, the natural question, the obvious question, where are you from?
Yeah.
In an interesting way.
Now, when somebody comes into, let's say somebody that's a little bit introverted, by the way, not a natural extrovert or whatever, and they come into a room with a bunch of strangers and everybody's milling around with maybe a drink in their hand or whatever. That's the classic situation. What do those people, in your opinion, most of the time do wrong? What are they not doing right, and therefore they're not getting much out of the networking event?
The introverted folk?
Yeah, the introverted folks, the ones standing in the corner nursing a drink, unable to get engaged with people that are in the room,
I think they might be missing what they're actually really good at, which is listening. Such people aren't necessarily out there to self-promote. They are the kind that sit back and they watch and they absorb, and if they could just do that in front of someone directly, they would really be feeding into each of our need to be heard.
Because everybody goes to these to talk to somebody, they just want to find somebody who will listen to my talk about myself.
Right.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
So those people could.
Yeah. So how do you start a conversation when after all the patter and so on, or you're hanging out, or somebody's talking, and you want to chat with somebody about something? How do you get that started? Do you start with a question, or do you make some observation about you know, what they're doing or wearing or whatever like that. How do you start a good conversation at a network event?
I'd like to comment on something outside of both of us, maybe something about the event itself, about maybe the drinks they're serving, the environment that we're in, and then get to the more personal side. Again, sort of coming in from a direction that's not familiar.
I think that's so smart, by the way, because people are, you know, they're sensitive a little bit, and you don't want to get personal with them too soon,
right.
You know, so you can play it safe by referring to the room or a decoration or a video or just something that's going on, and just to kind of get the patter going, right? But you know what? I read the other day that somebody can gauge your intelligence. Actually, they talked about college graduate in 9 minutes. Excuse me, 9 seconds. Excuse me, 9 seconds. They can make that kind of a quick assessment of you, and then kind of make a decision as to whether they want to chat with you or not in 9 seconds.
Before you've spoken?
No, you speak to them for 9 seconds before they've spoken. No, in 9 seconds though, after you chatted with them, they will make a determination, not necessarily if you're a good or bad person or anything, just as to whether you're an intelligent person. And they tend to want to speak to people like that more often than not.
Well, people foolishly believe that this accent is somehow, you know,
makes you more
30
intelligent.
extra IQ points.
That is a mistake.
I might have used that to my benefit.
That's ridiculous. But no, but that is an interesting thing. The other thing that I have been able to be successful at is being so transparent about myself that people are relaxed and say, well, he's revealing that to me. I guess he's okay. You know, he's going to open up to me. I'll say something to a stranger, say, you know, I feel so embarrassed. You know, the blah, 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 and, you know, how do you feel about that, you know? And people say, well, you know, I guess I can engage with you because you've opened yourself up to me in some way.
I think humility is the new currency. I really think that being authentic and humble and willing to not be an egotist or to shine too brightly is a very attractive thing. It allows other people to recognize that they're safe with you, that they can talk with you, that their ideas will be heard, and that you're not going to just run the conversation.
Right, or being competitive with them or whatever. Yeah. Now, how do you pace a conversation? Do you sense this feeling like I want to go a little deeper into this dialogue with this person, or I'm going to wrap this up, maybe get their business card and move on? Do you play the game, quote unquote, that way, or do you think about that intuitively as you're kind of wielding yourself through a group?
It is very intuitive, and now I'm wondering whether I could pass that message on, because I do feel like it's innate.
It's innate.
There is a trick that someone taught me, and that was, if you're going to, say, happy hour events, you're going to a broad thing that doesn't have a specificity about it.
Sure.
Everyone's doing everything. There's financial people there, there's real estate people there. You make a point of meeting someone or chatting with someone you know, then finding someone you don't know, then making a very deliberate point to introduce two people who don't know each other, and then slip away.
So you're the catalyst, you're the introducer. And
you become all three. You get the benefit of strengthening a relationship, of finding somebody new, and then doing something that's catalytic like that.
Do you gravitate to people you already know when you're in a group like that, or you deliberately ease away from them because you want to meet somebody new? I'm just curious what your preference is.
Well, there's people you know, and then there's people you feel like you know. So I tend towards those people that I think I could relate to in some way, after I've gone to the ones that I distinctly knew already.
Sure. Well, Simon, you're a veteran networker. You belong to chamber groups and things like that in the Omaha, Nebraska area. Can you give me 3 groups that you particularly enjoy, a networking app that seem productive for you and lead to further dialogues and relationships? Can you give any recommendations real quick here?
Surely. I do notice that when it's a very large group, it serves as a way to focus down to the smaller groups. And, in so doing, I've been to the Chamber of Commerce, the local Chamber of Commerce, of various types. There's the Sarpy County one, there's the Omaha one, and then there's the what used to be the Western Douglas County, and is now West O. Those have filtered down for me to meetup groups and to the Omaha REIA and smaller little subsets. And
you like the littler groups, or you like the big chamber meetings?
I like them all, and because I can benefit.
Like them all.
I can benefit from them, but I like being able to focus down to those people with whom I know I'm going to have a strong conversation. The reason I like them all is that I don't exactly know where I'm going to be in the next year, 5 years.
Sure.
And each meeting I make could be a catalyst to something.
Step into the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Simon Lovell, thank you so much for sharing. These are hard-won secrets. These are things that you learn over time, you know, and I appreciate you sharing them with us and kind of cutting them up so we can absorb them, become better networkers and relationship and business and so on. Very, very nice of you to join us and do that particularly for us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for joining us. Simon Lovell, right here. Thank you, sir. All right. Now, you know, it's a great interview. I really enjoy visiting with Simon, and he does get around. He forms a lot of great relationships. People say, do you know Simon Lovell? So it's a pleasure to have you here. Listen, I'm going to talk to you for just a few minutes here. I've got a very special guest coming up in a few minutes, but I'm going to change the whole rhythm and the pace of our WOWBIZ network, or WOWBIZ here in Nebraska, and talk to you a little bit about the evolution of people and human beings and so on. You know, if you ever go to a rest home or a retirement home and you see baby boomers and they're bringing their parents, usually they're in their 80s, maybe something like that, and they're all going through a serious change, psychological change. Nobody expected to be in this situation. They're trying to get a handle on reality. And many times the baby boomer children are suffering psychically just as much as perhaps their parents. So I want to talk about that because I've learned over the years, and this is something that you only stumble across, how baby boomers have to evolve and continue. They don't know where to go. They really don't have a path forward. I'm going to give you a brief notion right here. Now remember when we were kids, I'm talking to baby boomers right now, we were always taught, 5, 6, 7 years of age, we were told the 3 R's. Remember that? Everybody remember the 3 R's? Reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Everybody knows those 3. They always said, if you work on those 3, work hard on, get your homework done in those 3 areas, you'll be fine, all right? And that's what we grew up in. That was the ethos that the baby boomer generation grew up with. So now things have changed greatly, and I'm not going to go into all the change. Everybody knows that. We can talk about that forever. But I think there are 3 R's, new words, 3 new R's that every baby boomer must learn. You want to hear those? You want to hear those 3 R's? Yeah. I'm going to keep it brief, but this is an interesting thing. First of all, when you reach that point in your life, there are phases, right? You have to make a deliberate choice on how you want to evolve as a human being, because each one of them requires certain, sacrifices, disciplines, focus, mental focus, and so on. Self-image, right? A different way to think about yourself. So the first R is revitalization. Say, you know what? I probably got a good 20 years or so. I'm going to revitalize my life. So the R is very important in that context. We can talk about what that means. Then the next phase, they may start that way, right? And then you evolve a little bit further, you keep going, and you say, you know what, that's not enough. Because revitalization is changing the person that you were at that point, right? But eventually you say to yourself, I need to be a new person. Right? That's a powerful deal. So you go from revitalization and you reinvent yourself. You reinvent yourself. Okay? Personal branding's a big deal in the business world. Everybody knows about it. It's really an interesting discussion to have a heart-to-heart with somebody that you really trust and say, if I were to reinvent myself, what would that mean? Who would I be? How do I do that exactly? And would I do it from an internal perspective, or would I be doing it from an external perspective? Right? So revitalize, reinvention is a more dramatic change, a more thoughtful change. And then finally, the final R, right, is rebirth. Rebirth. And of course, rebirth is a pretty heavy subject, but everybody, thinks about it at one time or another. They just don't know how to have an intelligent discussion about it. They don't know what direction to go with it. So you say, well, maybe I'm in my 50s, I'm going to revitalize. I'm kind of bored. I feel a little stale with my career. I want to revitalize my career. Then maybe you get 60-ish, something like that, and it's more like, I'm going to reinvent myself. There's a million things I want to do with my life. I want to accomplish this, I want to be known as a different kind of person than I'm known as right now, to myself as well. And then the final one, of course, is rebirth. And rebirth is something you might prepare 20 years before you say, I'm ready to do that now. Now, rebirth involves examining your belief system. Think about that for a second. If somebody said, hey, what's your belief system? I actually had that discussion with a brilliant woman. She sat down with me with a big yellow legal tablet. This is no kidding, and a Starbucks. And she got all there, and she got her pen, and she got the whole thing laid out, and she says, okay, Tell me what you believe. Really, think about it for just a minute, right? I said, well, you know, I believe this. You know. She wrote like 3 pages of things that I said at that moment that I believed. Right? And as I was going through this process, I thought, this is incredible, really, because a lot of it is my early conditioning. You know, and that's no surprise. We all reflect what we learned when we were little kids, and conditioning and assumptions and subconscious and all that. Very important. And to try to assess it and put it right there on a piece of paper and say, gosh, do I really believe that? Right? Because there are so many things in your life that if you really think for a couple of seconds, lots of things would frankly disprove that belief, right? You don't behave according to that belief. You do all kinds of things that aren't necessarily consistent with that. So rebirth is a fantastic, deep examination of your value system and the deliberate choice to embrace a new value system. And that's a walk, man. That's a walk. So revitalize, that could be, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do a hobby. I'm going to become a painter. I'm going to go to poetry class. I'm going to have a ball. I'm going to revitalize who I am. Just take some more things into my lifestyle. Reinvent. That's a self-image thing. That's how you define yourself. I am this, not that. I found myself. I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to project who that is. And then rebirth. And many times that takes a coach or somebody who can work with you, because you're going to stumble across some pretty hairy stuff as you begin to really examine your assumptions and maybe the destructive effect they've had on your life up to this point. Guilt, remorse, all kinds of crazy things, overcompensation, neuroses, all that. So these are the 3 big R's that every baby boomer must review. We'll use another R word, must rethink, must come back to these things right here. This is inner stuff. And I'll tell you really briefly, when you start early in your life, you have ego, you have all this false identity, you move through your life, you go, I don't know. And the idea is to release yourself from all that at the end. All that, let it all go. You're not attached to any of it. Not attached to it. True freedom. I used to tell everybody that's my thing, right? I care about one thing, freedom. That's my personal ethic, right? Stay hungry, stay foolish, and stay free. My name is Lindy Rocker. Thank you for watching me right here on WOWBIZ Nebraska. I love it. Yeah. Now, I've got another guest, a great new guest. I'll be right back with him in just a second. And by the way, you are watching a program that is sponsored and developed in part by Curzon Promotional Graphics. Make sure that you check them out when you have that need. We'll be right back in just a minute. There you go. Welcome back to WOWBIZ Nebraska. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've got one more segment left in our program. He's a very special guy. He's an entrepreneur. He comes out of the financial industry. He's formed an organization. It's been very successful here in the Midwest. He's got offices all over the country. Let's learn a little more about his philosophy and what he's struggling with right now insofar as the organization's evolution and development. Please welcome my friend Brett Friebert, everybody. There he is.
Thanks, Lynn.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on the set of
Absolutely.
WOWBIZ Nebraska. Pleasure to have you here. And let me ask you this. How many offices do you have around the country for CFO Systems? I should have said is the name of his firm.
Sure, thanks. We've got 8 offices nationwide.
Wow.
35 people in the firm right now.
Yeah, and you didn't start that long ago. What's 10 years?
14 years ago.
14?
Started
Okay.
in the office above the garage.
And what were you doing before this? I don't think I really know that.
My career was fairly traditional for public accounting. I spent 7 years in the true public accounting in the Big Four, then did the traditional step across the desk and work at a client, and I worked in the corporate world through 4 different iterations,
Okay.
4 different stops in the corporate world.
And what provoked you or prompted you to say, I think I might go out on my own and see if I can't do this deal on my own. I'm interested in this big decision.
That's there's the long version and short version. I'll stick with the short version for now.
Yeah.
The my last several years were short stints of 2 years a lot of cleanup, turned around, build something, hand it off.
Yeah.
And when I was interviewing again in the summer of '04, I kept seeing all these good middle market, lower middle market companies that somebody said, geez, it's about time we get a CFO. And I could see that they didn't need a full-time CFO.
Okay.
But
So-
I could be CFO for 3 or 4 of them concurrently.
I see.
So I hung out my shingle and told people that there's a new profession.
Sure.
Professional CFO.
And that's not an unusual business model. I mean, it's been applied in other consulting areas and so on. And so it makes perfect sense that you did that. But now you started to grow. I mean, how long did it take you before you thought, I might bring an associate or two on?
About a month.
Really? Were you overworked? You just had too much work to do?
It was an
personally?
area that I couldn't do.
Oh.
So I said, here's an area I can't handle. I
Yeah.
need somebody to come in and do this. I don't want to lose the client, but I'm the wrong person to do the work.
You need a specialist. Okay, well, so let's leap ahead 13, 14 years, all right? You've got a well-established operation at this point. You want to go to the next level. You need talent. You got to build capacity. What are you struggling with there? What can we learn from where you're at and how you're attacking it?
Sure. We struggle most in this economy especially, and in this profession especially, finding the entrepreneurial accountant, the entrepreneurial CFO.
Is there such a thing?
It's not really an oxymoron. They're out there.
Okay.
But discovering the entrepreneurial accountant, the accountant that always had a little bit of fire in their belly, a little bit of spark in their eye. They'd like to have their own firm, but they just didn't quite have the step off the edge, step into the deep water courage.
Now, why, if you find that person, what do you say to them that gives them the courage to go ahead and move out of that corporate environment? Because really, your business model, I don't know exactly what you offer that kind of a person. Why wouldn't they just do what you did originally and go off and climb up above their garage and open their own shop?
Some do. The Lone Rangers are a formidable competition. The barrier to entry in our business is very low. If you stop and get a laptop and a smartphone on the way home, you can be a CFO by midnight.
Yeah, okay, and especially if you're well connected. I mean, that goes a long way. But what is your model? How do you say, hey, come in and be part of our group, and still you do have to be somewhat independent and drive growth for yourself individually? It's a hybrid model there.
It's a challenge. We look for the people that thrive on change, on pace, on somebody that wants to help the client grow. Somebody that is always, again, had that fire in the belly. So what do we offer them? We offer them the ability to come out and create and build somewhat their own practice. Say, all right, you can have 3 to 5 clients concurrently. You can work with everything from daycare to cattle feeding. You can work with trucking. You can work with virtually any industry in America, and they're your clients.
And what do you skim something off the top? Or I mean, you got to do something, right? Or you charge them rent for a room.
man.
I shouldn't use the word
Skim is such a
Take
harsh
a
word.
percentage. I mean, come on. There's got to be some reason for you to
Right, they
support
pay,
them.
They pay a portion of their fees to the firm for
Okay,
the marketing collateral, the admin support. The team, it's not a team of 35 Lone Rangers. It's truly a team that will have 2 or 3 or 4 people working on a client concurrently, and people collaborating all day, every day.
You know, you mentioned to me earlier that the key issue in terms of expanding and bringing in these people, and they tend to be veterans, experience, right? And a lot of them are just not used to the notion of trying to build their own deal. Tell me a little bit about that demographic, the baby boomers, and what the mentality. Can you bring them around so they love it, or do they say, I don't play the game like that?
Both. We see both. This past couple weeks, we've had success we've seen both categories. We've seen the very entrepreneurial that, you know what, I'm tired of being in the corporate world. I always had some fire in the belly. I always wanted to do something like this. This gives me a chance to go out with the support group. It's sort of like entrepreneurialism with the net. On the other hand, we also see the good, stereotypical corporate soldier, spent 22 years, showed up every day, went to this desk, went to his
dutiful.
desk. Very dutiful, very faithful, probably won awards for attendance, got promoted routinely, and suddenly their world changed. And whether it was an acquisition or a downsizing,
they get pushed out and so on.
They get pushed out.
And they're in shock.
Exactly. They're absolutely in
And
shock.
do you take advantage of that, or do you try to calm them down and say it's going to be okay? We're over here. I mean, you got to figure out how you're going to handle that emotional. It's an unusual emotional status.
Empathy is huge.
Yeah, it
obviously,
really is.
obviously, got to empathize with somebody that's in that
Right,
situation.
right.
And many of us have been in that situation. So
yeah.
it's not what's wrong with you. It's we've all been there. The decision they need to make is, do they have that energy to go out and build their practice?
And energy is a big deal.
Energy is a huge thing.
That's not everybody's deal. Well, Brett Friebert with CFO Systems in Omaha, I got to thank you for laying this out and just showing us the kind of life that you have to live, and in a word or two, what's the next level for you? What are you going to do next, and what's the vision at this point for you?
We'll continue with the geographic expansion into every major market.
Okay.
With the economy growing as it is, with the quality of people out there, we'll continue to grow in the major markets. And
okay. All right. Sounds good. And you've got to be able to pull them together and keep them collaborative and keep them, give some sense of brand and teamwork. That's not the easiest thing to do, as you have all these outstations. But
that's right.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you on the leadership side. Thank you so much. Brett Friebert, everybody, right here on WOWBIZ Nebraska. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again very soon. I appreciate you hanging out and seeing all kinds of messaging, all kinds of content. We're sharing it from the heart. Lots of news. Stick with us. You're going to see a lot of very interesting people on WOWBIZ Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.